In our next example, let's look at whether Borda count is fair for a particular election. So this time we're going to evaluate Borda count for this particular election. I have a new election here, a new preference schedule. So let's first off, to be able to evaluate this, we have to figure out who would win with Borda count. Now, Borda count is the point system, so we need to calculate points for all three candidates. And because there's three candidates, that means there's three choices. Remember, however many choices you have is the highest point value. So first choice would get 3 points, second choice would get 2 points, and first choice would get 1 point. So if I were to actually work out the points for each candidate, I would be multiplying 3 points by how many first choice votes they get, 2 points by how many second choice votes they get, and 1 point for every third choice vote they get. So I'm going to do this for each candidate. And to kind of set this up, I'm going to just initially set up the calculation on the page first without worrying about the votes. I'll go back and fill the votes in. I find it's easier for my organization that I don't forget anything if I put together the calculation steps first, and then I'll go back and fill in the points and then do the calculation. All right, so let's look at these individually. Let's look at A first. If we look at A first, we're going to start with A's first choice votes. A had 5 first choice votes, so I'd put a 5 times the 3 in the calculation for A. And then A had no second choice votes. Notice no second choice votes. So I put a 0 multiplied by the 2. And then A had 4. 2 and 2 makes 4. Third choice votes. Now I want to do the same thing for each of the other two candidates and then calculate. All right, so let me go ahead and erase my markings for A, and we'll do this for candidate B next. So candidate B has 2 first choice votes. They have 7 second choice votes and no third choice votes, so 0 there. All right, let's do the votes for C. C had 2 first choice votes, C had 2 second choice votes, and then C had 5 third choice votes. So we're going to do the calculations now for each of those candidates. So 3 times 5 plus 0 plus 1 times 4 is equal to 19 points for candidate A. B would be 3 times 2 plus 2 times 7 plus 1 times 0, which would be 20 points. And definitely feel free to use your calculator here. I'm just doing these in my head, but I earlier did them with a calculator to just double check. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 times 5 is 5, so 6 plus 4 plus 5 would give me 15 votes, or points rather, not votes, points. All right, the highest points wins for the candidate, and the highest points here would be the 20 points, so candidate B is the winner. So B wins with Borda count. So we're going to look at the winner being B in terms of these fairness criterion. All right, so first one I want to examine is the majority criterion. Recall that the majority criterion says that if someone gets a majority, they should be the winner of the election. Well, let's look at how many votes we have here. We have a total of 9 people voting, so total of 9 votes. To get a majority with 9 votes, you need over half. Half would be 4.5. We need over that, so that would be 5 or more votes for a majority. Did any of the losing candidates get 5 or more votes? Well, if we look back up here, A had 5 votes. Right there. A had 5 first choice votes. That constitutes a majority. It's just barely a majority, but it is a majority. And if you look back, A did not win the election. So A got a majority of votes, but did not win the election. So this would be a violation of the majority criterion. A got 5 votes, a majority, but didn't win the election. So again, A was a loser, but got a majority of the votes, so that's a violation of the majority criterion. Now we could stop at this point and just say, okay, we've now shown that board account is not fair in this particular election. But I haven't looked at an example with the IIA criterion yet, so let's take a look at this same example instead of moving on to a different one, and let's just see how the AIA criterion would work. Now, the AIA criteria basically says that if a loser of the election were to drop out, would the election results still be the same? For the AIA criterion, they should still be the same. If the results change, then this is not fair. Okay, so if a loser drops out, we should still have the same results. So we had two losers here. A and C were losers in this election. So let's take a look at dropping one of them out of the race and redistributing their votes. So let's say, and I'm going to use C because I think it's probably more likely that something might happen with C because C had less points, but technically you should try both candidates to see what would happen if both drop out. But let's say C drops out and we redistribute their votes. Now, it's not just about simply redistributing first choice votes. We need to redistribute all of C's votes. And because we're dealing with board account, the easiest way to do that is just to redo the table. Okay, so if C drops out, we really kind of, because we're doing board account and board account relies on not only first but second choice votes, the best thing we can do is just redo the table and then redo our calculation. So first choice votes, second choice votes, and then we had these three groups of people. So I had 5 people who originally voted A and B and then C, but if C drops out, then they still vote A and B as first and second. So the first group doesn't really change much. Group 2, that group of 2 people, when we redo the table here, those 2 people originally said B first, so that would still be their first choice. But if C drops out, then technically A would be their second choice. And then the third group, C was their first choice, but C has dropped out. So that means B moves up to first choice and A moves up to second choice. So it's kind of basically what I've done is I've really just kind of eliminated C from the preference schedule. And then if I needed to, moved everybody else up. So I get this new table. What we have to do, though, is that even though C has dropped out, we still need to use the same election method. So we're still using board account here. But now because we only have 2 choices, the counts or the point values will be 2 points and then 1 point. So we have to kind of rethink about board account with only having 2 candidates now. So we're now calculating the point values for A and the point values for B. And now each one of them is going to get a certain number of votes that are worth 2 points for first choice and then 1 point for second choice. So let me just set up the calculation algorithm first. On my page, I find it much easier for organization if I set that up 2 points and 1 point, and then I can put the particular votes into the parentheses. So let's start with A. A had 5 votes for first choice, and then 4 for second choice. So when I calculate that, that would be 10 plus 4 or 14. So their score for board account once C drops out would actually change to 14 points. B would be a little bit different. B would be looking at first choice would be 2 and 2. So 4 people altogether voted for B in first choice. B had 5 people vote for them in second choice. So when I calculate that, 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 times 5 is gives us 5 more, which would be 13 points. So now when we look at who would win, A has the higher point value, so A would win. What this means is that by C dropping out, when C drops out, we have a new winner. The winner from before no longer wins, so the winner changes. And this is what we consider a violation of the IIA criteria. The IIA stands for independence of irrelevant alternatives. A loser dropping out, you can consider a loser an irrelevant candidate, right? And what this says is that if an irrelevant candidate drops out, you shouldn't have a change in at the outcome of the election. But what we just saw is that when a loser drops out here, the winner changes. So the IIA criteria is violated in this election. Or I should say criterion singular is violated. So in this particular election, Borda count not just violated the majority criterion, it also violated the IIA criterion. Technically, again, we only needed it to violate one of the two criterions for it to be unfair, but I just thought it was a good opportunity to look at the IIA criterion in addition to the majority criterion.